When you click on a tool, it's going to look like this. This is the learning skills writer. And we're going to start by, it says select a learning skill. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick one of the skills to demonstrate here. And I'm going to go to select independent work. That's the skill I want to focus on for this comment. I'm then going to select what I want the pronouns to be for this comment. I'm going to go with she, her. And then I'm going to simply jot down 2 or 3 examples of how I want my students to demonstrate or what I'm assessing when it comes to their independent work. I've got some ideas in mind, and I don't need to worry about sitting down and writing the whole comment. I just need to jot down very messily 2 or 3 different examples like this. So I might say, well, I want the comments to be about completing. So I might say completing daily bell work each morning. That's one thing. And then I might say going to quiet corner when needed. And then the third thing is just avoiding off-topic conversation. So those are the 3 things that I want my comment to focus on. Don't need to worry about writing, I just jot them down. And then what I'm going to do is I can select my language in English, French, and Spanish. And I'm just going to hit submit. And then what you are left with is your banks. So it says independent work report card comments, and you have your bank for E for independent work, G, S, and N. For example, she consistently excels in her ability to manage independent tasks, completing her daily bell work each morning with precision and diligence. Then it goes on about the off-topic conversations. N, on the other side, is she's beginning to show some understanding of independent work by occasionally completing her daily bell work. So obviously, as you progress down from E, G, S to N, you're going to see that the language shifts to reflect that that grade level or that mark that student or that your students receive for independent work. If you have not logged onto Curricumate in the past couple of months, you might notice that there are some changes with the way that the output looks. And that is because we've made a couple of really, really big changes over the summer. And starting with the ability so you can copy. So this will just take it and copy it to a clipboard that you can, paste it to a document. You can also edit. So when I click on edit, it's going to allow this to be fully editable. So I can add things, I can delete things, and I can really make it unique for what I want. So maybe it's like 80% there, 90% there, and I'm just going to add a couple of details manually that I want added. So editing is a really cool feature. And then what's really cool is now you can edit using AI. We call this refine with AI. So it might not be totally useful in this tool to use the length button to change the length from shorter to longer or to summarize. But for all of our tools, you can imagine when you're creating a reading comprehension task or a worksheet or a lesson plan, I could simply click on the length and modify it to make it shorter or longer. I could summarize to get the main idea. I could simplify this. I can adapt for ESL. Wouldn't do that here in this tool, of course. Explain key terms. So there's different things that you can do to change this. Another thing that you can do is you can prompt after. So think of this as if you've ever used Gemini or ChatGPT. It's a blank box that you're prompting back and forth with. You can now do that here. So I can instruct it to do anything or to change in any way that I want. So it's going to really adapt to what you're looking for here. If you're not sure what you want to modify it with, you can use one of our suggested prompts. So each tool will have unique suggested prompts. This tool in particular has add a next step, use growth-focused language, write in past tense, or suggest some other examples. Just to show an example, I'm not sure, I've never come across principals who want it written in past tense, but say that your principal is one of those, or they don't mind. If I were to click on write it in past tense, you're going to see how it's going to change. And now it's taken the present tense and turned it to past, where she consistently excelled in her ability. She demonstrated, she began to demonstrate, and she began to show. So it might not be applicable for you, but it is there if you want. And you can just basically suggest anything you want here if those suggested prompts don't work for you. At any point, let's say, oh, I want to go back to the original because I don't like the changes that I made. I can go up to the top right of the document, and this arrow button will take me back to the very first one that we did. And this tool will, like I said before, help you write for a group of students who share a similar learning profile. Let's do this quickly here. So I want to pick a learning skill. So I'm going to pick initiative for this example. And I have a group of students who are at a G level for initiative. And again, I'm going to select some examples of how they demonstrated that skill. Just list 2 or 3. Utilizes classroom resource corner. And I might put an example, calculators, fraction strips, asked appropriate questions, and worked on their passion project. 3 things. Now I want to apply this for a number of students who all got a G in initiative and all kind of, I would like to reflect those 3 examples. So I'm going to go with some names, just to make them up quickly. Mia, Peter, and David, and Charlotte, and Chris, and Ben. So those are my students who got a G, and I'm going to submit for initiative. And now it's created a comment for each student that is completely different, but has the same information that we had jotted down. Let me read a quick example. For Mia, Mia demonstrates a solid sense of initiative by reliably utilizing the classroom resource corner, such as calculators and fraction strips, to support her learning. And then it goes on about asking appropriate questions. Whereas Peter, it's different. Peter shows good initiative by consistently making use of the classroom resource corner, including tools like calculators and fraction strips. So it's just modifying it enough that the language is different, but the information is the same. And that is something that a lot of admin will like to see, that, oh my gosh, they don't just copy and paste for all. It almost feels like you're writing for each student, even though you're not sitting there and writing a story for me and a story for Peter. Absolutely, we encourage you to, use Curricumate and then make those modifications after if there's a specific example you want to highlight for David or Charlotte or whoever it may be, just to make it even more authentic. But if you can get 80% of your work done here really, really quickly just by jotting down a few things, it's going to save you loads of time here. So that is your multi-student learning skills comment. This tool here will allow you to write all of them at once. It takes a little more work, but you're actually doing less and less typing, and you're getting more ideas from this. So let's do this here really quickly. So in this one, I'm going to start by selecting the grade that I'm teaching, so grade 7. And then for each of the learning skills, I'm going to simply select the mark that that student received. So the student I'm thinking of demonstrated a G in responsibility. And I can click on 2 or 3 of the pre-built examples here that you might find useful if you don't have ideas for how you'd like to word them. They're sort of general, but we find that they reflect most of the examples of responsibility that you would find in a report card comment. So I might say they complete assignments on time and with care, they submit homework without reminders at a good level, and they uh, actively follow through on classroom responsibilities. Then I'm going to do the exact same thing for the next level. So now organization, this student in mine got an E, and then I'm going to pick 2 or 3 to show how they did that. So they keep their workspace tidy and organized, and they prioritize tasks to meet multiple deadlines, and they keep digital files and folders organized. So maybe they've done that, and you'd like to highlight that. Just going to continue on now, independent work. So I'm going to go and select G. The student got a G in independent work by staying focused on tasks without getting distracted, using quiet strategies, and by staying seated and following expectations. Same thing for collaboration. Maybe they need to work on that. They're going to get an S for collaboration. And some examples, we can say they resolve conflicts, or they're working towards this, and they're also working towards compromising and considering different perspectives. I do the same for initiative quickly. So I'm going to click on a couple of them. And the same thing for self-regulation, also maybe an S. So I'm just going to click on a few that I like. There we go. Now, here's where you can add that level of personalization to it. If you don't just want to select the pre-made ones here for you, maybe there's a specific example you want to include just to add a little more personalization. I might say he created and led a recess chess club for junior students. That might be an example of initiative that I want to highlight for that student. I can select a next step now. So we've got a set of next steps here that might apply. And if they don't, you don't have to have one. You can just say none, or you can create your own. So I might want to just pick one and say in group work, taking on a specific role might be a next step. And then I'm going to select a pronoun, and I'm going to generate it. And now it's got the entire report card comment for learning skills, and it's grouped by, so you're going to see that there's a headline or a small bolded category here, responsibility, organization. Some admin like to see that, and if they don't, you can easily just kind of take them out if you don't have to sort of organize them that way. But we did that because we find that a lot do like it like that, so they can see for each of the learning skills. So it's got everything that we clicked on. It's got the part about the chess club. So it says he usually asks thoughtful questions, as seen when he created and led a recess chess club. So it's going to take all that information in that you just simply clicked on, and here's your learning skills comment for this particular student. And this is another way that you can customize so that each student doesn't have the same one. They all have different attributes. You can click on different examples for each student and build them really, really quickly, and it's ready to go. And what I'm going to do is simply go through the motions here. So grade, I'm teaching grade 4. And I'm going to select the subject for the comment as language arts, the pronoun as he, him, and then I'm going to jot down a couple of strengths, a couple of needs, and a couple of examples of student work. So I might say for strengths, reading a variety of texts fluently. I'm going to add comprehension of text meanings. Whoops, text meanings using context clues and activating prior knowledge. And then oral communication. So maybe those are 3 things I want to highlight for strengths. Needs, maybe the student needs to work on writing conventions, and they need to work on adding more detail to their writing. Some examples of student work now. This is where it's nice to highlight. Here's how they demonstrated these things. So maybe the student did an about me presentation that I want to highlight, and they also did a comparative writing paragraph on video games versus board games. So it'll add that level of personalization when we add the examples. I can select the length now. So I know we're only in progress reports here, but if you, just for sake, I'll show you the long, but you can choose between them to get a different length of them. And just as we did with learning skills, where we had E, G, S, N, now we did the same thing, but for subjects. We have A, B, C, and D. So it's going to create the comment for each level that I can then edit myself. I can export them as we did before, and I can even make modifications here within. So this tool is very, it's going to take your information you already have in mind. These are the strengths I want to highlight. These are the needs I want to highlight. These are the examples I want to highlight. And rather than sitting there and writing my A-level comment, my B level, my C, and my D, all I had to do was jot down those strengths, needs, and examples. And I can apply these for a number of students by doing, the copying and pasting if that's my style. And again, you can modify these after by changing the length. So maybe I want to make this shorter. So I can make this shorter. So it's made it much shorter. Maybe it's like, oh, that's a little too short for a language comment. That might be for a phys ed or a social studies comment. So I can go back again. I want to keep that first one. And I can improve the flow and transitions if I need to. I can ask it to do these things as well, but feel free, use these. They will help to improve the quality of the comments. They're pretty good as they are, but the magic happens when you're really working with it to get exactly what you need. Like adding a next step or making them sound more personalized for the student. So I recommend going and checking that out. So that is subject comments for building bank. So really easily, again, start by selecting our grade. So we're grade 4 teacher, and we're going to be doing our health and phys ed comments. Now, this one asks you to identify what is the mark of this student, or what mark did they get in this this subject. Now you might say, well, this is progress reports, and we go by progressing with difficulty, progressing well, or progressing very well. Just use your judgment here, right? Because an A is going to be very well, a B is going to be in that meets expectations, and then C and D will be progressing with difficulty. We haven't made that distinction for progress reports. That actually kind of makes me think that we should probably have that as well, just so it's easier for you to think about and don't have to think about that. So let's just say we want to go with progressing well. Maybe it's in that B range. So I'm going to click on B, and then again, strengths and needs examples. So for phys ed, I have some things in mind. I can just loosely jot them down. Following rules and routines of the gym. Let's say warm up, lining up quietly, and then active participation in daily games and activities. Those are my two things. So examples, and now some needs. Maybe we got into some technicalities of games, and then some needs are finding open space. Maybe they're, got to move their feet a little bit more. Communicating with teammates, and passing during team games. Some examples now. You don't have to add examples, but if you want, maybe we can say they worked on a zone game unit, like Ultimate Frisbee. And I want to stick with that. And then I'm going to select a comment here as medium. And then I'm going to apply this for the following students. So I'm going to apply for Thomas and Sally and Jessica and Greg and Sydney and all these students who are at that B range. And then Pauline. And I'm going to generate. And now we have our comment completely different for Thomas, Sally, Jessica, Greg, Sydney, and Pauline, avoiding that copying and pasting the same comment, changing the name, changing the pronouns. You're going to see that it's got the same information written differently. Thomas often demonstrates, Sally usually exhibits, Jessica often displays, Greg usually demonstrates. That'll create a lot of variety in your comments so that when your admin are reading them or your students are reading them, they're not exactly like everybody else's comments. This is great for differentiation. We're going to start. Again, I keep saying, you start by selecting your grade, and then you're going to select a subject. So we'll build a math comment for grade 6. Now, here's where the curriculum comes in. I can select my strand now. So we worked on number, and I'm going to go to B1 number sense, and it's going to pull up all the specific expectations from grade 6 math number sense. And it's got the exact language used in the curriculum, word for word. Nothing's changed here. So I'm going to select 2 or 3 that we worked on this term so far that I want to be reflected in the comment. So reading and representing whole numbers up to 1 million, reading and representing integers and using number lines, and comparing and ordering integers. Wow, those are 3 things that we worked on. It's directly from the curriculum. I've selected them. Great. Now I want to add another strand. If you wanted to, let's say you want a number again, but you wanted to go to operations. I'm just going to click on operations here. You can also do that. So you don't have to click a brand new strand. You can click the same strand again to get to the different overall expectation within that strand. But let's say we are good with number and we want to do a little bit of commenting on algebra. So I'm going to click on algebra and then C1, which is what we worked on. And then I'm going to click on the expectations that we've covered so far. So identifying and describing, repeating, growing, and shrinking patterns, creating and translating those patterns, and then pattern rules. Great. So now I got 2 strands, number and algebra, and I'm going to keep it at that. I could add another one, but for progress reports, you don't have that much room or you haven't done that much in the year here. So I'm going to keep it at 2. And now I'm going to just align this to the student's achievement level. Again, progress report, think about an A being above expectations, a B or C being at expectations, and that D sort of being below expectations so far. So I'm going to go with maybe they are above expectations. I'm going to then select the pronoun for this comment. So this is pronoun by she, her. And optionally here, here's where I can add a couple of details. Maybe the student in mind has their strengths are mental math ability and computation skills. Ability and computation skills. Their needs, maybe I want to say communicating written answers in word problems. And then what are some examples? You don't have to do this. This is optional, but it's nice to have a little bit. And here's how they demonstrated this. So I might just want to say participation in daily math talks. And maybe we did something called patterns all around me project. I'm going to select the length. I'm going to select it as medium and then hit submit. And now it's given us our comment. That's going to have expectations from curriculum weaved in. I'm just going to quickly read a little bit of it to show you. She consistently demonstrates a deep understanding of numbers and their application in everyday life through her strong mental math abilities and computation skills. Her participation in daily math talks highlights her confidence in reading and representing whole numbers up to 1 million, as well as her ability to effectively compare and order integers, decimal numbers, and fractions. So it's taken the examples and weave them to fit within the expectations. She often excels at identifying and describing repeating, growing, and shrinking patterns with a particular strength in specifying which growing patterns are linear. Through her Patterns All Around Me project, she has shown an impressive capacity to create and translate these patterns using tables of values and graphs. This might be too long, no problem. If it's too long, we don't have to regenerate. You could and just go to short and regenerate, or I can change the length here. And I'm going to say make this shorter. Now it's shorter. Maybe it's too short here. So maybe I can trim it myself if I want to, or just use the previous one. You can also add a next step, which is really cool. So I can just say add a next step, and it's going to take all the information that it has from that comment and suggest a next step. So it says practice writing detailed explanation for solutions to word problems to enhance her mathematical communication skills. So we're just right there. You know, it's, I don't know if it's the fastest tool as compared to the other ones, but this one is definitely as accurate as it can be relative to curriculum. And you can imagine as you get into all your subject areas, you don't need to have the curriculum documents up on another tab. They're right here for you. And you don't need to go and copy and paste them and try to reword them to fit. They're right here for you. And they're not just going to be written as they are. They're going to be weaved in nicely around your examples. And it aims to fit it within a narrative that is not, very robotic. You might find, hey, it's still robotic for me, and that's fair. And you can go ahead and change it after the fact. You can make it more personalized here. If I click on make it more personalized, it's going to make it even more of a narrative rather than just this. So throughout the term, she is consistently impressed with her deep understanding of numbers and how they apply to everyday life. So it's just going to take it and change it a little bit and do with it as you will here, but just saving so much time doing this, making sure that they're aligned to curriculum. It's just a game changer when it comes to it. So we're really, really excited about this tool. And this is one that we always recommend.